Good morning. Good question. Well, for you, Mark, for you,
Losing $5. I'll shut mine off.
I better shut mine off.
I won't forget I asked him.
Okay.
It's usually off today, my day when you're working.
Never mind.
Good. Turn it. I better shut mine off. If I can do that. Okay, here we go. So, thank you. We do really appreciate it. One thing I will say though, as we start off, I've seen a lot of couple of days, and one of the things that was very disturbing was short notice as a conspiracy theory, because and although I can tell you that that did not happen, I will admit this is never picked for a meeting, and so we'll own that. So we apologize up front for that.
Couldn't change it.
Wanted to, believe me. But I just wanted to let everybody know, like, I appreciate for this sort of package in whole, and if you just have some patience with us, let us kind of get through it. Got the room up front here. Hopefully by the end, there are a lot of questions, a lot of your questions. If you do have, as it comes up, you know, feel free to ask away, and we will have a chat. I can't wait to see our next town hall meeting though, that we for people out here talking about all the great things that our community members are doing. One other thing I'd just like to mention, and we're talking about the social media, and I just want to address this, like, I know a lot of the council, and I know for myself, I don't comment on social media when things started getting out of misinformation, because it doesn't, typically you can't get out of that, and then it just sort of grows and grows and grows. So it's not like that we were ignoring anybody. If, you know, I always encourage people that if you do have questions, contact one of your counselors, contact myself, contact the town office. But, you know, like yesterday, it was kind of, I have to sort of highlight a couple things. You know, there was a post put out. I'm great that everybody's here tonight. Maybe that's helped get everybody to the meeting tonight. So I appreciate that. But it turned into things like criticizing people, our staff for removing snow, clearing snow, and about them digging holes and how they do excavations. And that's really unfair. I mean, this has nothing, you can criticize the process that we're doing here. You can criticize or question the intent of what we're trying to do here. But the staff has nothing to do with this. And I would really encourage everybody, our staff's doing the best that they can. Yeah, do we have our struggles from time to time? But they're really good staff. They really care about our community. And it's unfair for them to get criticized based on another meeting that's happening.
It did take 7 years for you guys to hatch a ground spot from my house,
So yeah, but that's a different, if you wanna have a question about that, you can bring it to the office, though, John, that's not a
I
problem.
did multiple times.
So, you weren't one of the guys that I was talking about last night. The other thing is that, I would just say is that there were some comments about development and stuff. You know, and I'll say there's 11 votes for this one thing, but our economic development officer is beating the street every single day to try to get development in this community. We have lots of irons in the fires. This community development corporation is contacting investors continuously. And some of the discussions that we're having right now sort of came about what we've been talking about with economic development. So, you know, as always, us as council, the administration, you wanna come sit up front, man? There's lots of rooms up here. There's a bunch of chairs.
It's like church, right?
Yeah,
So
yeah.
they can get the front row.
If you get over here, you have to have confession with Councillor Hopper.
I'll be taking a collection.
So again, the whole intent of this meeting tonight, just to walk us through, just have a bit of patience with us. Our council will jump in where they can, and I'll try to walk through it, and hopefully, for the most part, we'll answer your questions. What we're going to do is sort of just explain sort of the agenda, welcoming, a little bit of a purpose of why we're here. Sort of try to explain the special service levy and how it works, and just, you know, Spoiler alert, it's not a new tax. It's not adding a new tax to anybody's bill. Why we're proposing the special service levy? We got a time for some questions and some feedback. But we're gonna have a hard stop at 8 o'clock. About 5 to 8, we're gonna start wrapping things up. And that doesn't mean that questions can't continue, because remember, this is just an information session. The formal process of going forward with this, we'll show you later, but there will be a public notice put out on Wednesday. Then there's a 40-day period where people can register objections, and you'll see the whole process. So this is not a done deal tonight. This is months away from doing anything. This is really about what council wanted to do, is make sure that people understood it, make sure we hear from you in a little bit of a non-formal way so that we can explain it.
Can I ask a question? Can we get copies of that? I can't see.
Absolutely, but not right now because we don't have a printer.
Oh,
But everything you're gonna see is gonna be online. At the end of the meeting, there's a frequently asked question sheet that has a lot more detail in it. So you'll have this slide pack will be available for you to see online. That's being video streamed in sync with the slide pack, so you hear the conversation that goes along with it. But I apologize, I have one sheet unless one of the council has an extra copy with them. But I didn't bring a copy.
that's fine. No, that's fine.
There's more chairs right in front of it.
Yeah, there's more chairs up here, guys. Mitch, you guys wanna sit down? You're good? Okay, so as I said, opportunity for us to kind of explain the special service levy, how the costs get distributed and how it impacts the ratepayers or the taxpayer. And then again, listen to our residents and the feedback before a final decision is being made. So what are we doing? So we're actually exploring a special service levy, and the special service levy will be to cover the RCMP for policing services. So that's a $3.9 million taxable bill, or an invoice that we get from the RCMP. We have zero control over it. And why we're doing it is we believe that it's a fair, more transparent and predictable way of funding policing. And it also supports growth with residential properties, development, both new and developing your properties, upgrading them. Today, how you collect policing is around general taxation, so it's just locked in with everything else, and I'll explain how taxation is how we actually calculate that in a few minutes. But everybody gets a tax bill. It's based on the value of your home through the assessment branch. It gets multiplied out and we apply it across the board. And under the special service levy, what we're believing is that everybody will contribute equally for this service. So I'll explain, sort of the two things here. We'll go through mill rate and then the special service levy. So if you look at the top formula there, what it's really saying is that how a municipality determines a mill rate is they create an annual budget. And that annual budget, you get a certain amount of dollars from it. So if it's $17 million, we say to run the municipality, which includes policing, includes schooling, includes all the capital, everything that you need to do to run the municipality for that year, we put it into a budget. And then what the municipality does is that we have an assessed value of our community. So our community, I believe, is worth 200 million or 211 million or something along those lines. And so that comes from the assessment branch by adding up all the properties, all the value of our community, right? Businesses and the whole works. And then we divide that to get into our taxation that we believe we need, our budget, and we get and times it by 1,000, we get what we call a mill rate. So it's really the constant that's going to now multiply out the cost of taxation, or based on your assessment on general taxation. And then so if you look at the bottom, so then what happens is now we have, you guys want to come sit up here?
Yeah, no, I'm okay here.
No, you have to come sit up here. You got your thing. No, there's lots of room up here. There's a bunch of chairs.
I'm good.
You sure?
Yep.
But you're not right. Okay, you know, in front of somebody, you're standing right in front of somebody. Okay, perfect. Okay, so then if you look at how your property taxes is calculated after you get a general, after you get your mill rate, is that we take the assessed value of your home, right? So if your home's worth $200,000, we take that, we divide it by 1,000 to get it, to lower it. We multiply it by the mill rate, and then we multiply it by 45% if you're residential, or 65% if you're commercial business.
Excuse you, Mr. Mayor, would you be able to move that screen over in the center where we can see it? See all of it? Not higher.
Probably not. I will ask my friend down here to see if he can help move it without knocking everything else out.
Thank you.
Yeah, no, we can see if we can move it right in the front here.
It looks like.
Yeah, we need an extension.
We gotta shut it down.
Can we just unplug the,
Oh, but.
sorry, Jim,
I can only see that.
yeah,
So higher.
you wanna, Randy, you wanna unplug the TV?
Better say.
Well, I'm just worried about putting.
Just the TV that's on.
Come on.
Come on, Jim, sit up front.
Okay.
Alright, Jim's gonna sit up front. That's good, guys. No, that's good. No, because this is good. Jim's moving.
Oh, okay, I can see it now.
Keep in mind, guys, that this is gonna be online. And if you can, we'll always be able to answer the questions. So, as I said, so once under general taxation, how general taxation works is the municipality does a budget for the year, takes the value of the municipality, all the businesses, everything, what it's cost. We find a mill rate. That's the number we use to multiply out. So last year, I believe it was around 57.6 something. This year, again, you'll see the numbers, it's around 63, which would indicate there's a 6 mil increase in taxation coming. But I want you to keep in mind that that's our budget number. We're still into our budget cycle. We're not even close to being where we're at, so don't get too alarmed by that, but we put the number in there just so you see it. And then again, now individual properties, when you're talking about your taxation, individual property says my house is worth 200,000 or 250,000 or 100,000. I plug it into my assessed value, I multiply it by the mill rate, and then I times it by whatever percentage, the 45%, or from business 65, and I get a tax number. Everybody sort of understands? Good, because I don't really understand half the time either. So when you talk about mill rate assessment, what we're really talking about is, and why we're talking here today, is we believe that it reduces the ability to attract individual and families interested in either building and developing single family homes. We've had direct feedback, I know our economic development officers here, about us trying to develop certain lots in our community, and the developers just back away from it, even when the lots are provided at very discounted prices, zero. And we've also provided a tax incentive, which you'll see in an EFQ, in the FAQ that you'll get, where you get a 75% tax break in the first year, 50 in the second year, and 25 in the third year. The feedback is the taxation in the area is still too high for the long term, and we can't develop. So that's one of the reasons. The other thing is we hear from people, and this is about properties improvements. So if you're gonna build a garage, put a deck on, I know our former mayor Jakes is here, that he does all these assessments, but the assessment branch will come in and they'll say, this home now has been improved by X dollars, and you get an assessment, and next year your tax bill goes up. Because that's how it works. The other thing is that when we're talking about these things here is that it's really is about trying to drive the overall tax revenue in our community up. So if we can get more houses built and we can get people to fix up their homes, it is gonna raise the total assessed value, and then it generates more taxation. So in the long term, if it worked, it's gonna be less strain on the rest of the taxpayers because you're starting to get a bigger tax base. So that's one of the ideas. Now, it's not as simple as we do this next week, Bob's your uncle, and we're off to the races and everything's good. It doesn't quite work that quickly, but we're hoping that this is what it does. So when it comes to a special service levy, I had to put it in red again because I seen it all over line last night. It's not a new tax. It's not an additional tax. It's not adding $950 as it was online. There's some seats up here, folks. Yeah. Yeah. Come on. Sounds okay.
That's-
I'm a cuddle.
Yeah.
You gotta wake up anyway.
I'm good, yeah. I know.
Everybody started.
It's nothing on you.
So, as I said, it's not a new tax. It's not adding, we're not asking the community, everybody to chip in another $950 for policing. It has nothing about that. It's about distributing that pot of dollars that we've collected in a different way. It allows, what it does, so a special service levy is one of the municipal tools that the provincial government provides municipalities to be able to manage taxation. It allows us to apply a fixed charge, as we're suggesting here, for specific services to properties, to a designated group of properties, if you so see fit. We believe that it supports ensuring that, you know, everybody's sort of in the game for the same thing, and we're all paying, you know, we're trying to pay fairly, everybody's sort of doing their share sort of thing. And as I mentioned earlier, it's to fund the RCMP policing services. And we believe it's a way of providing stable, predictable, and transparent way to distribute costs while supporting development. So I just want to say one more time, it's not a new tax. It's not an additional tax. It's not more money. It's not adding any extra dollars to the overall annual budget. Just to come back to it, it's what we're trying to do is distribute across all the eligible properties and removing it from the general mill rate. So what I'm saying there is that when you have a taxation where we're doing this with a special service levy, we're pulling out this cost, that's $3.9 million from the budget that gets applied to general mill rate taxation. So you'll see in another slide, you'll see that if the general taxation without it is 63 mill rates, and you remove that RCMP cost and use it as a special service levy, you see the general mill rate now drop to 48. And what that does is you have to think about it as that you have a fixed cost for your RCMP cost, you know what that is, you know what it's been applied. And now if you're doing upgrades or you're building, the impact on your assessment, the assessed portion of your property is less on your tax bill. Because you have a fixed dollar value for your policing costs. And the assessed value now, instead of being 63 as a multiplier, it's 48. So that's what it does. We do believe that it does impact renovations and upgrades today because we hear it. I'm sure everybody here has heard in this room said, I'd love to build a garage or I'd love to put this on, but I'm afraid to because I don't want my taxes to go up by a pile of dollars. Your taxes are still gonna go up if you put a new garage on, but not as much because your mill rate is less. We believe it creates a fair cost sharing model to reduce the general mill rate, as I said. So again, taking that 63 to 48. And we also know, and this is from feedback, and this is a real measurable thing that, you know, the community can hold us back to when the special service levy passes, if it does pass and it's got a life and it has to be renewed after 3 or 4 years. This is a question you can ask. Did it actually make an impact? And if it didn't, the next council, whoever that could be, could say, we're not doing that no more because it didn't work. And maybe we should do it with something else, or maybe we should do something a different way. But the tools that the municipality have in Manitoba are very limited. We don't have a lot of tools to play around with taxation. If you go to Saskatchewan, completely different volume. They can initiate flat taxes, they can have multipliers on certain types of properties. They can do all sorts of things with their taxation. Manitoba doesn't. I know, again, I'll just call out Mayor Jakes, we've advocated for this for years and years and years, that we need the same tax tools that other provinces have. It's been submitted to the provincial government multiple times. So what would a special service levy formula look like? So what you get is, you see the brackets part, assessed value plus or divided by 1,000 times mill rate times 45%, exactly the same. The difference now is, if you look at the special service levy, there's an additional cost there, or there's an additional fee that gets added to that formula for the taxation. But then if you look actually here, so you can see the special service levy here is that we believe that if you take, you initiate taxes, you know what the cost of the RCMP is, so you pull that out, $3.9 million, right? You apply commercial, multi-unit, multi-resident families, so 3 units, somebody that has a 3-unit or more, or apartment buildings, and you apply taxation to them how it's always been done. General mill rate. Nothing changes for business, they don't see anything different. Nothing changes for an apartment building, they don't see anything different. We're talking about that is because businesses and apartments actually pay a significant, and to apply something like a per door thing for an apartment, it would just be it would make them uneconomical, like they would just not, they would go out of business. So you remove this dollar value out of there, and it's about $2 million or something out of the 3.9. You remove that out of that gets applied because you've collected the taxes from that group of properties. It's generated this amount of tax revenue, about $2 million, say. You're left over with the $1.9 million. With the rest of that now, you apply it to every single house, independent of your assessment, and every single developable commercial and residential property, vacant property, and everybody pays the same. So when you divide all that out, it's around $968 or so. And that number is a little fluid, but it shouldn't move too much about this because it'll get included in, and you'll see it when the public notices come. So now that we have that, we've covered off the taxation. This is where now we say my assessed value, but here's, if you look here, my general taxation rate from budget estimates, keep in mind, that's not don't lynch us yet, is 63.48 for the calculation. We apply that calculation to businesses, apartment buildings, multi-unit residents. We collect that dollars. We subtract it out of after we've, sorry, I'll just say this again. We take this mill rate here, and we apply that commercial apartments, etc., will be applied, and they generate. We remove that from the calculation now, right? And now the new calculation is for everybody else that's not in there. So that's all single residential homes, or any vacant commercial or residential lot that can be developed. So if you've got 2 lots and it's been your homestead forever, and one of them is a vacant lot, but your yard's been like this, we're not talking about that. We're talking about if there's a lot somewhere that you're just sitting on and we're trying to encourage you to get moving on it. But you can see now what's happened is that the actual mill rate has actually dropped by 40 to 45. So your multiplier here is smaller than it was as a general mill rate. Again, this is
What was
not
the number previous? I'm sorry.
the previous, not last year.
Yes.
I think it's like 57.6 or something. The number last year's, mill rate, but I'm pretty sure it's 57.60409 or something like that. But it's on our website if you need it. So this is where it ends up. So what we do then is, I'm just gonna skip through this. So like I said, I just wanted to reinforce, and just a highlight on this, guys. We're all over this. I know other councils have been over it, we've been over it, our council has got our RCMP pricing in front of the. This is not right, it's unfair. The model for policing and how they calculate policing costs is incorrect, and it needs to be updated. Our Association of Manitoba Municipalities are also advocating on our part. There needs to be across Canada a reform on how policing costs in the PAW is 3.9 million. In Swan River is 900,000. So that's, and again, this is not the local policing guys' fault. This has nothing to do with those guys. They're doing a bang up job as they always do to, serve our community. This is all to do with just how the policing model has and how it's calculated for us, based on really numbers. So here's what it sort of looks like when we wanted to sort of give you a picture before and after sort of thing. So if you look at the top part here, you can see that if you just come down this line, this is sort of the tipping point at $116,800. So if you go down here, so if you're on this side of the tipping point, you're just gonna see a slight increase in, this is gonna be online for you, but if you need it. Oh, okay. So if you're going this direction, you would see an increase. If you're going this direction, you're gonna see reduced taxes. And so, again, just for comparison, $125,000 assessed home, your portion at 45%. We do a general taxation, 63 point, whatever that number was, 5 point something. We do that general taxation, that's what the number calculates to, and that's what you pay for taxes. If you do a special service levy, again, $125,000 home. That's your portion that you get taxed on, the 45%, right? You can see the general taxation driven by mill rate, right? General mill rate is lower, right? Because the number is smaller, 48 point something. And then you add back in the special service levy of 968, and it comes out to 5304. So this person or this residence is seeing a $68 change. If you go to the other side and you look at $100,000 one home that's assessed, and you see the same thing, general taxation 2857, that's what they pay a year. You go under a special service levy, same 45%. The general taxes, you can see are 48.6. General mill rate number is lower. You add back in a special service levy, 2996. Their taxes have increased. And as you know, further you go down here in the chart that you'll get later that we've included that shows a bigger numbers, but the further like a $250,000 home is gonna see a $1,000 increase. We don't have many 50, or sorry, decrease, sorry. And then $50,000, thanks for keeping me awake. Who said that?
We're all noticing. We're all seeing. Yeah.
And then, if you look at the $50,000 one, same thing. If, we don't have a lot of $50,000 homes, but, there is $50,000 property built, so there is gonna be an impact. It's $554 of an increase versus, their tax would have been $1428, but it's gonna be $1982. And again, keeping.
33% increase.
Yeah,
You're just trying to.
just one second, okay.
The mill rate in terms of residential and business, what does that one mill rate basically generate?
Off the top of my head, about $200,000. One mill rate increase is about 200 and, I think this year's like 201,000 or 202,000, but I don't know that off the top of my head. Yeah, so somebody said that's a 33% increase. For that property at $50,000. We're not hiding that. And that's how it would work. If there was a property, if there was somebody living in that property.
And it goes the same way on the other side of it for anything less.
Absolutely, yeah. So higher, if the higher, and there's another chart here. I don't know if it's the next one. But there's another chart and you'll get a handout when you leave that actually provides a lot more detail on that flow of what the impacts would be. Keeping in mind that we're going to put this stuff on our website as well. All, this is just information sharing. Yeah, that's what we're, yeah, so we're gonna get to it, but I'll just have one more slide here, so. So this is sort of comparing a mill rate, how it is today, if our budget was approved and that was what we were going forward with, and what it would be with a special service levy.
Anything that's above 3 dwelling units or apartments would stay the same mill rate than it has been, right?
Yes.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah, so just to clarify that, so if you have a place that you're renting that has 3 units in it, we consider it a rental or an apartment building or a commercial site or a hotel or whatever it happens to be, there's no change in the way they're taxed. It's exactly the same as it is today. They get general mill rate taxation. They take the value of their property, divide it by the 1,000, multiplied by 0.65, and that's their taxation. And it's if you start calculating and why we said we didn't look at that for apartments, you know, people will say, well, you should have put every single door in apartments. Just as an example of that, we did look at that to see what the impact would be, because, you know, we put apartments out of business, like, and that's not what we were doing this about. This is not the whole idea. It was talking about development. And so they already pay significant taxation.
Shouldn't it be based on gross revenue?
So, no, that's great question. So he was saying, shouldn't it be based on gross revenue? So that's one of the things why we looked at that, is that apartment buildings and commercial, but commercial guys don't use it as much, but as an apartment building, they can actually appeal their, just like all of us, they can appeal their taxation bill or their tax bill to the Board of Revision based on the expenses it is to operate their business or their building. Where we, as a residential owner, if, you know, somebody, my assessment gets bumped up by $100,000, I can also go to the Board of Revision and say, I don't agree that my assessment should be this, and appeal my case, and hopefully they reduce it. Businesses and apartment can do that as well, but they can also appeal based on revenue. So
You were saying about it's with our 3 dwellings within one space. What about 3 separate, say duplexes?
yeah, well, duplexes, the reason why we didn't include a duplex, because we're not sure if it's a rental or not. Because there's a lot, we're a little bit more comfortable because we don't have a lot of triplexes. Understand that, so that's why we said 3 and above. But duplexes could have 2 separate owners. But, and again, if the triplex in town is not like that, or somebody comes to the community and says, hey, you know, that's my house, that's her house, this is his house. For sure. Yeah, that's the reason why. Make sense? Yeah.
Mud, I guess.
Okay,
But
perfect.
if you got a property though where the owner is the same person, right, like you have different titles for different properties.
Yes.
Right, so really one could be, if
Yeah.
Don owns one and I own another, they are 2 separate households.
Yeah, and again, it really was, and it's not something that we could maybe look at, but it was really that we just didn't see that really changing much of the picture. It was not, we're not doing this to try to punish anybody. We believe that this is going to encourage development, make it more fair, allow people to upgrade, build some houses. So there's all sorts of those reasons why. So as again, I just snipped this out, but you can kind of see what the big picture is. And again, in the handout you're gonna get, you'll have this information in there.
If you go back to the previous slide for that. So I noticed in Flin Flon, there are several
Yeah,
issues that are included. I understand though Flin Flon's RCMP cost is considerably less than here.
I can't even get Flin Flon's RCMP cost because I think it's zero, and I've called twice today to their CAO. If you look at their actual, budget online, it was originally looking, their protective services is about 700 and some $1,000, but there's no line for RCMP costs. Like I can't figure it out. I did message the mayor prior to coming here last week to say, hey, what's your RCMP cost? He's out of town. He said, call the CAO. I called them, but typical CAOs, they don't call their return calls. Just 1 second.
Leads up. They've obviously decided special levy should apply to several separate issues. So if it's such a wonderful idea, does this then lead somewhere in the future for the law to know it's going to be special levy for this and for that?
You know, it could really lead to that. We don't know. To say that we absolutely got this nailed down and we know exactly how it's gonna impact everything and we understand it's gonna impact some people negatively. We know it's gonna impact some people positively, like we understand. If it becomes the best thing to slice bread and next year or 2 years from now, the council says, man, we should do community safety officers. You look at the RM of Kelsey, and I didn't put them on there, but the RM of Kelsey, which is in our community, they do recreation, they do fire protection, they do roads, and they do recycling.
And it's always taking it out of the mill rate every time you distribute it in the levy, or?
It's every single time. It's removed when, the bylaw is only allowed to be done, you have to do it 3 or 4 years. It's set. So if, say, for some reason, we ended up going ahead and we approved further along and we put this calculation in there, this is what the levy is this year, 3% increase next year, 3%. It's set. So that's where it goes. So if for some reason it's not a 3%, the general taxation mill rate will just have to cover it. It's not gonna change. You'll during this bylaw period or during this special levy period. Now, if you wanted to say, hey, maybe this is so great and this things are so good, let's do one for community safety officers. It's the exact same process all over again. You know, so we did talk, should we include more? Should we do? And we thought, let's just get one out of the way. This is a big one at $3.9 million. But let's just get one out of the way and see how it is. We want to understand how the community is going to react and all that sort of stuff. And that's why we're here tonight.
If the levy got approved, when would the money be due by? Like, would it be a certain?
Regular taxation. Yeah, it's, so she mentioned was when would you have to start paying your levy? Your levy gets included with your tax bill. It's no different than your regular tax bill. You get a tax bill. All it will show up on there now is instead of you just seeing general taxation or general mill rate taxation, you'll see that with the mill rate, and then you'll see another line that says special service levy policing or whatever it's called.
How many RCMP officers are we entitled to paying for?
Well, we're entitled to have 23.
Okay, how
We
many?
have about, well, it depends on what day of the week it is, but we typically will have anywhere between.
Like I say, we're supplying the outlying community with RCMP.
Yeah, well,
We're paying for Congress division, which is here, what, 2 days a week?
Yeah.
3 days a week?
Yeah, so we don't pay for those guys. So those guys are actually built separately. And we don't pay for those guys, just like if the RCMP is responding to an incident outside of that they get billed back for that. We don't pay for that type of stuff. What we do pay for those today is, I mean, again, you got any young people who want to be RCMP officers, that are inspectors or staff sergeants in other communities. And this is not just happening in the PAW, this is happening everywhere. There is a major shortage of RCMP.
But why should we be paying for people that we don't bodies we don't have?
We don't,
So are you saying then when we have our 23 officers, the cost for
no,
7.2?
no, because that's the estimate.
3.9?
Yeah, that's the estimate we have this year, 3.9, that's what it could come in at 3.4, it could come at 3.5. Remember that when we're paying all this overtime, you know, as much as we say, right, or here in the community, the guys that we have we're still covering all the shifts.
But you haven't answered my question. I'm asking you.
No, they would get billed for what's here. And if we're,
So, just wait, so you're saying we're billed, right now we have maybe 14 off. 3.9 million is for the 14 officers. So when we have a full complement of 23, we can expect that to increase?
no, we will expect that we'll be paying our full budget amount, 3.9. What I'm saying is that typically what happens now, and I haven't seen the final bill for this year, but we budgeted 3.7 million or something last year. And the bill will probably come in around 3.4 or 3.3 million.
One of the reasons facilities.
One of the reasons it's still high like that, we're paying rent on the facility,
Yeah.
that's a federal facility. There's huge rent, another thing we don't have any control over. Here's your bill. Pardon? Sorry.
Just one question, guys.
Why are we paying the rent? Because back to what the mayor says, the formula they're using is not fair
We signed a contract.
and.
Should have looked at that contract a little bit closer.
Well,
Contracts
expired, did they
not?
How long that contract's been going on for?
Off the top of my head, I think it ends in 2030, but I'm not 100% sure. I don't know if anybody else in the room remembers, but I believe it's around 2030. It was a 20-year contract.
But they are seeking to generate tax income.
Good question, and I don't think so. I think they're tax exempt. At the end of the day, we would just be paying the bill anyways. So I think they're tax exempt.
Andre, can I make a suggestion?
No,
We're gonna get endless. Stuff. I think you guys gotta have another meeting and come armed with what the costs are and explain to the public who's gonna pay for this. You just said Swan River pays $900,000. You just said Flin Flon pays nothing. As well as the people in the RM, what are they paying? Or what are we getting?
no,
Because you said that we've got 12 officers. The question. How we go from 3.9 for 12 officers per officer, when Swan River has a designation of about the same amount of officers.
no,
How many officers are in Swan?
7. Want to see my text from the mayor? I asked him 2 days ago. Manager?
If I can, Kelly, I have a little bit of experience. So what Andre is doing here is he's budgeting 100% at 3.9. The question about the 14 members and the 24 members, the presumption and the hope is that it comes in under budget at the end of the year. I haven't heard yet what they'll do with the surplus. The varying costs about whether it's 700,000 like at Flin Flon or 4 million like with the FOP, it's all based on population. When they do the census every 3 or 5 years, whatever it is, it's very, very important that census is accurate and done properly. That's what everything is based on the census. And there's a big discussion about Flin Flon is less population than us, but below 5,000. When they hit below 5,000 like Swan River, their policing costs tank. If our population ever dropped below 5,000 people, our policing costs
would drop
big time.
No, be Our policing costs would be 75% less than we were below.
Yeah.
That one.
So Thompson's twice the size of us, and I did look that up, I think they're around 7 point some million, but they have like 38 officers and their population's like 15,000 or something, so. So again, it's a good question, Kelly, again, that's a bit of if you wanna understand the difference between policing and that, we can have those questions, really has nothing, I mean, it relates to this, but, you know, we're basing this special service levy based on the estimate that we're given. Last year, I believe it was 3.7 million. Yeah, something like that, so.
We signed a 20-year contract. The RCMP, how does their rate go up every year?
Yeah, again, another good question, and you've probably seen it in the news. This is the challenge with us managing the RCMP because their costs are straight pass through. We have no say in what's going on. We have a little bit of say in capital. Body worn cameras, $600,000 directly onto the municipal's bill. Huge pay in their retroactive pay, which, you know, the police officers should have got a pay raise and all that sort of stuff through their negotiations. I get that. Huge amount of number. I think it was $300,000 or $400,000 off. But, and again, all of the government to say, ETAF, we had no choice to say what's going and you just throw us this bill. So the RCMP is a very, as a manager, we have really zero control. We have some control, but not a lot of control over the cost of how they do business. We do control if we wanted to go in and say, we only want 2 officers. They would probably push back on it. We have some say on the number of people they have. If we ask for, hey, we want instead of 23, we want 25, they'd say, no problem, you're gonna have to pay for the extra 2. You don't get to kind of just take that on like that. But at the end of the day, again, we just took the budget that we were provided by the federal government, not me, but the controller says this is what we believe 2025 is gonna look like. We'll execute the year. We will get a bill at the end of the year, whatever it happens to be. And I know, was asked where the surplus goes, I believe, and I'll have to verify it. So Bola can write this down. I believe it would just go back into general taxation, but I'm not 100% sure I'm not really sure where that goes, to be honest with you. So we can write that down and we'll include it in our FAQ to just say where the extra dollars would go.
So you were saying we're supposed to get 23 officers. They're supposed to be doing like a regular shift, right?
Yeah.
And we're only getting 12,
But right now,
13,
right now with the.
but you're saying they're getting overtime?
No, we have 12, but the equivalent man hours is probably more like 20 or 21 because we're paying for travel costs for them to get
Yeah,
here.
police are coming in.
They're coming from all over the province, retired members to fill in because we don't have the bodies here.
Yeah.
And that overtime, we have one person could equate to,
With this kind of a budget, you think we'd be able to hire some people now?
you can't, it's like the mayor says, the problem is
It's
nationwide.
nationwide. The RCMP is overall short.
Andre, can you comment about how much this changed when they took that allowance away from our members? Like,
Yeah,
we're at 12
yeah.
members now. How much impact does that have on us?
So one of the things is it's impacting the recruitment. So what happened and again, this is not the local guys, but federally, they decided that the PAW was no longer an isolated post because they can drive to Prince Albert and they're close enough to Prince Albert through the tote road so that it kind of fell within the 50 kilometers of the actual distance. But Swan River is still an isolated post. Flin Flon is still an isolated post. Cranberry Portage is an isolated post. Snow Lake is an isolated post. So it has, what we understand and when we talk, where the big impact is, and we just talked to the Minister of Justice during Trappers Festival on this topic again, is it's impacted the recruitment, but what it's really impacted as well is we're not getting long-term officers here. Cause the guys are coming here, young guys out of depot typically, they're putting in their time and they're leaving because they can go somewhere else and make more money and they're young in their career. So, you know, we are encouraging not only the federal guys to change their thoughts on that, but we're also encouraging the provincial government to come up with some sort of tax incentive so that they're recruiting the same, so that somebody's not saying, well, should I go to the PA and work or should I go to Swan River and work?
They're saying these guys are making overtime and all kinds of money. So,
Getting burned out.
Yeah. Well, but again,
do you think it's the quality of life here in town that's not keeping people?
It's a good point, quality of life, where do they live, where do they find a place to stay? Right now, we're working with the economic development officer, with the developers, to try and build some housing for to come to town, because anybody comes to town now, there's no place. Probably not, and that's the first thing, you get calls 2 months before they're ready to graduate. Find me a place. And a lot of guys haven't come here and girls haven't come here because they can't find a place to stay. So that's another issue that we're up against for recruitment.
Lawrence?
Are we doing question period now?
No, yeah, I know, thanks for that, Lawrence. That's one thing I miss about Lawrence, he always kept me on track in any meetings, but as long as he didn't call this a Murphy Muffin meeting or something. So, yeah, so just to get back to this, so this was really just sort of what other municipalities are doing, it's not in here, it happens all the time. Again, we're not asking everybody in town to kick in another $900. We're gonna have a handout when you leave. We put a lot more details in it so that it'll hopefully answer a lot of these questions. So if you want some light reading, you'll be able to read through it. With that handout, if you have any questions, you can call the office. And if something new comes up, we're gonna actually add it to the handout and we'll keep it live on the website through the period of this whole special service levies and public hearings and stuff. And so it'll be on our website. And again, it's still in the works to get set up. Now we are at questions. So one second, go ahead.
Just to follow up on the process, the 40 days, just a kind of a brief on that before you go to questions.
Yeah, so I saved it to the end, but what I'll do is, I was gonna use it as my wrap up, but I'll tell you. So here's what we're doing. So again, this session was not a public hearing. Okay, let's answer some questions. Maybe we're missing something. I know some people are gonna be happy about it. So. And at the same sense is that we did want. Just relax and have a decision. But what happens officially? So for us to move forward, we have to put up a public issue. We have to issue a public notice. Then we have to provide 40 days for that to be. We're not rushing it. We're not trying to, you got lots of time to come up with also. Track down one of the counselors, not me. And then what we do is then we have a first reading of the bylaw. And at that time, people will be there. You can come and that's our public hearing. You can come and officially record your objection saying, I don't agree with this, or I support this, or I don't support it for this reason. And you can hand in a piece of paper and then it becomes formal. And this is not, this 14 days, we're gonna wait 14 days so that everybody has an opportunity to say, I don't agree or I agree. After that time, we'll take that information. So after April 22nd, council will take the information and then make the decision to move forward or not. Now, I put this in here, so if there was 25 formal objections, it's not council's decision anymore anyways. It's a municipal board's decision. So we have a plan, we think it's a good plan, it's our first one. But if 25 people said, and the municipal board has to look at it anyways, but if 25 people, 5 residents, we submit that all to the comes back and says, yay, nay, change this, can't do this, fix this, whatever it happens to be. If we don't get the objections and we all think, yeah, well, let's give it a shot, then council will pass the next meeting so that, it gets approved and move forward to the. This is all in that FAQ, it's all online, so like I said, today was not the public meeting, we committed in our council that we were gonna have a public forum before we had any public notices put out, so that we didn't create a big issue with everybody seeing, oh. Yes.
Just, on the frequently asked questions, I think we have 50 copies. Obviously, it's not gonna be enough. You can come by the town office tomorrow morning, probably after 10, there'll be more copies there available. If somebody doesn't get one tonight.
And it'll be posted online, and this slide pack will be posted online. And I know all the council are available to answer any questions anytime you want. Okay. Mr. Kaczorowski.
So I do have a question. This whole meeting has made me think that it's about policing. But you also mentioned developing. And you've also mentioned the exclusion of fourplex owners, multi-dwelling apartment owners being burdened by tax. But yet you're gonna put an increase on the poor schmo that owns a $50,000 home. I'm lucky enough that I'm in that bracket where my taxes probably won't go up. But I still pay the same tax as my brother-in-law who lives in Victoria, in a $1 million house.
Yeah.
And you couldn't afford RCMP last year. Is that what you're saying?
No.
Has this changed our RCMP?
No,
So why are we doing this mill rate? Is the mill rate the same for every city?
no,
So this is our,
so it's unique to unique to our community, based on our budget and the value of our community.
The whole premise was for the RCMP cost. We thought every homeowner in town should pay the same amount of money for that service. That's the underlying thought behind this. So whether you're a $50,000 home or a $400,000 home, you're gonna pay the same amount for the same service that everybody gets.
so in the last 20 years, we're understaffed by RCMP. And by the way, in my experience, RCMP don't choose where they're stationed. They're put there.
I think it's changed.
They can make a bid on it
Okay.
for promotion.
That being said, though, our RCMP numbers haven't been very different in the last 10, 15 years. Have they?
Yeah, they're actually quite different. Well.
I just,
Taking comments, it's questions only.
well.
Okay.
This is my comment.
Former has a question and it'll be okay.
So I am opposed to it.
Yep.
I was opposed the last time on
Yep.
the same ground. So I'm opposed to implement levy for RCMP cost. This financial burden is being shifted to seniors. In smaller and older homes with lower assessments. The reasons they live there is because that's all they can afford. I understand that around $90,000, which would pay RCMP costs currently, where the way the mill rate is right. 2,570, and then with the RCMP costs taken out, they would pay approximately 2,007, which is an increase of $223. That's on a $90,000
Yep.
property. That's somebody who that's all they can afford.
Yep.
So properties that are less than $90,000 in assessment would have their taxes increased even more. So I also understand that there are approximately 600 residential properties that would see an increase.
About 35% of the roll numbers. I don't know if they're all properties.
Okay, roll numbers.
Yeah. Houses, there could be some lots in there and some.
But driving around town of La, I see a lot of these little houses.
Yeah.
I can identify.
Yeah.
Lots and lots of them that have people living in them, and they're all low income seniors, whichever. So these properties belong to low income people. I'm just saying potentially.
Potentially,
Out
yeah.
of the 600. So I know the council is continuing to lobby the federal government regarding the RCMP cost. Have forever continues to. I know that you guys are working diligently on that, but this is not the answer.
I appreciate your feedback.
So we're just putting a higher financial burden on low income people. This is not the answer.
Yeah, and again,
Low income is shrinking. Everybody, regardless, everybody is finding that it's more and more difficult, but when you look at the low income homeowners or renters, they're choosing. Et cetera, et cetera, et cetera.
Yeah.
And it goes on, and we are responsible people.
Yeah.
To look after those, what are we gonna do?
Yeah.
Make them homeless, make them to move outside of their communities? We're hurting our most vulnerable people by putting this levy into place. Like I said, our community pays way too excessive in our CMP cost, no question about that. I know a lot about community development, what you need to do, et cetera, but you can't do this to low income people who are living in homes, whether they own them or rent them, and they're gonna pay $200+ a year more for taxes. Their revenues, their income has not increased $50 a year for everything else that's covered. I'm extremely opposed to this.
yeah, no, I hear.
Because of the low income.
And I appreciate the feedback, and we obviously have talked about that as well.
Have you guys actually?
Just let me finish there, bud. Let me finish first, and then you can, she's next, and then you're next. So then, we've talked about that, but at the same time, I can't look, or as a council or as an administration, we can't look at a property value and determine the wealth of that person. Now, I know there is some correlation to where you live, but there's also a correlation that people that live maybe in a little bit more expensive house are under the same constraints. So I think that it's about fairness, and this is how we look at it. I don't think we would ever want a taxation model based solely on you can afford it, you can't afford it, you can afford it, you can't afford it. And that's what we said. So we believe at this time that everybody paying the same amount fairly for this price is the right way to go. Hopefully, we get more development, that we get more houses built, that people are building more things and fixing their houses up so we can increase our overall tax value. That's our hope. Are some people gonna hurt? Absolutely. Are some people hurting? Do we believe some people are maybe hurting over here too? There might be people already hurting in this area too. So it's not really fair for us to say that everybody down here can't afford it and everybody up here can't afford it. That's not our choice. That's not our decision. Our decision is to make sure we apply taxation fairly across the board. We believe this is the way to do it. And maybe maybe some people are gonna be impacted, but overall it's good. Just 1 second, Lawrence.
Can I just make sure I understand? Last year, so online it says the total mill rate in the fall is 53.9.
Okay, yeah, 50, yeah.
Okay, so if you don't apply the special levy, you're increasing the mill rate to 63.48%. That's what you're proposing? I want to make sure.
No, you're, that's what it looks like. We are in our budget discussions right now. So that 63 number is so
So
early.
that's the budget estimate.
Yeah, that's
So you're increasing.
Yeah, no, this is a budget estimate. This is a budget estimate because we haven't even driven through all the details. We've only had one presentation to council on budget. We're not close, but we had to land on some number and we probably should have used last year's number, but we used this year's number. It's not gonna be 63.
No.
Well, it won't be 73, but you want it to be 73?
I also want to say that equity is not everybody paying the same thing. Equity is people paying. So I understand if we have a higher price property, we'll be paying more taxes.
Yeah.
So I also want to say that this isn't equity by charging everybody the same thing.
No. I hear you. Just 1 second, Lawrence.
Consideration to them old people that are living on fixed incomes that probably don't have an index pension.
We don't have the ability to look at people's finances.
House, now they gotta cough up $950 extra.
No, it's not.
You're
No.
You're gonna be put them in our council.
They're not gonna see a $900 increase in taxes. I doubt that.
What can you do on a $30,000 house?
Yeah, well, I don't know if there's any $30,000 houses.
You live in that old.
Yeah.
Has anybody considered?
We
I wanna know.
Yeah, we have considered that. And we still believe,
No big deal.
no, we understand, like I said earlier, we impact some of our community members.
They can't afford your levy and your taxes. You're increasing taxes.
Okay, I appreciate that.
Aren't you?
No. How do we know that?
What are you doing?
If we're having,
You're avoiding the question.
I told you the answer already though. You would, so ask your question again, ask your question, no, I didn't say, well, ask your question again. Sir, ask your question again.
I said, have you given it any consideration about what these old people, they've lived here all their lives?
Yep.
All their lives. They're on a fixed income that is not indexed like yours is going to be.
No, well, I don't think,
Back in the eighties.
get your facts straight. Because you don't know that.
I know for a fact that she's living on a.
No, you talked about me.
That isn't indexed.
So what you asked the question was, did we consider that?
Did you?
Yes, we did consider that. So we did consider that, but we still believe our way of doing things, because we are distributing the cost of this. No, we care about hurting anybody. We don't want to hurt anybody. This is not the intent. And you know, but hopefully I answered your question, but never. Sorry, just 1 second. Oh, go ahead.
One of the things we did, that was a big concern. That was exactly what you're saying. We've all talked about that. One of the things we looked at is like, what can we as a municipality do to help these people that are going to be negatively affected? So we had our economic development officer look, is there programs out there? Like the government has lots of different programs. So we're gonna try and help people if they're affected in that way where you're saying they're gonna have to.
The particular person I'm talking to is 98 years old. How computer savvy do you think she is?
Yeah.
If we have somebody
that's
that's.
in a house where you're not gonna have to worry about it. It's gonna be upside for you. For her, it's gonna be downside.
Okay.
To actually break the capital down.
So,
Okay, just 1 second. No, I got a bunch of guys asking questions all at the same time, so I'm gonna try to remember. Mr. Kozrowski was next, and then yourself, Janice.
The last time I was asking, I wanted
Yeah,
kind of
after that.
clarification.
What's that?
It might be a little
I'd
dumb,
like to be after
but
that.
your special levy is a redistribution of taxes to help pay for the RCMP cost. And also to promote development, and the way to promote development, you feel, is to, are the multi-dwelling owners excluded from the levy? Are they, because what I'm thinking you're
Yeah,
saying
no,
is
I know what you're saying.
that everybody is tax exempt, and then they drop out, and then the levy applies to everybody else who has a single home. Is that what you're saying?
So what I'm saying is that under a special service levy, they're included in the levy because we can't just, but they're included in the levy to have taxation calculated as it is calculated today. So they're part of the levy, they're part of that discussion, but how it's calculated for them is that as their taxes are calculated today on general mill rate, their taxation is driven that way. And then whatever revenues are generated from that block of businesses or apartments, that money is subtracted from the RCMP cost, which is around $2 million. And then the rest of it is now divided amongst all of the other residents.
Has it been that way in the past, or is this?
It's never been like that because we've never had a special service levy
Okay,
ever in Nepal. The RM of Kelsey has them, like I said, I put that out, like there's other communities have them, the commonly used tool around the province, Swan River uses them. Like we're not new. It's just, we're first time.
the only person I see benefiting from this is the multi-dwelling owner. We still have the RCMP, the same amount of RCMP, our taxes are still going up. So I just don't see it, so I'll show up at that meeting.
Okay, no, perfect. Janice.
so a lower mill rate is more attractive for developers.
Right.
Thank you.
No, he was first, sorry.
Yeah, I'm working.
Okay.
What I was gonna mention was I was looking at properties in different towns and in Winnipeg, say half the amount of tax,
Mhm. Absolutely right.
and they have all of the services.
Absolutely. And you know what? Tax revenue is higher. they're generating more taxes. And that's the bottom line. We have a limited number of
It
places.
should be
where-
relative.
Not, no.
But it is.
No, it's not because you have a lot more business, dollars being generated. We have to, like, we don't generate the taxation, and this is where the economic development officer, our next town hall meeting, maybe we can talk about is diversifying the economy in the PAW by, or the tri-community, if you so be it, where we have transportation as a big part so that we can have those businesses growing and taxation. And once we get more general taxation dollars coming in, then your mill rate starts lowering. Because you're generating more value, you have more value in your community.
I don't believe that.
Well, that's,
Once the government or more money out of you, they're never gonna give you
oh, no,
any kind of a rebate. You're not getting
No.
that back.
no, what I'm saying is that if all of a sudden, we have a business generating $1 million worth of revenue in town, or $1 million more in taxation in town, overall, everybody's taxes is low. This is how it works. That's
Are all our businesses in town paying taxes now?
every single business in town, everybody pays taxes, including craft paper pays, I don't know, I don't wanna speak for them, but they pay multi-hundreds of thousands of dollars, the highest taxed business in the community.
For virtually no service other than fire protection. So we lucked out on that years ago.
Oh, I was just gonna say, if you can say off the top of your head, I think this is something that we should focus on. And what is the percentage of roll numbers that will benefit from doing the special levy?
35, we believe, just from the calculation we have, 35% of the roll numbers will see a negative
Yeah.
or a increase in taxes.
Mhm.
Again, sloped as you further go down. It's not everybody, sees $936. It's and 60. I wanna say, I don't have that number off the top of my head, but we can get it. I wanna say it's like, not houses, but I wanna say it's like 630 properties. Val said that earlier. Hey?
Pretty sure Val will be there.
Yeah,
So that's a surplus that will benefit opposed to, I'm just saying that because for getting taxed so hard for people leaving because they can't handle the tax base. So the special levy, in my opinion, is good because you're trying to even the score somehow. It's not easy. It's never gonna be perfect, but the thing is, there's that many people that are gonna be benefiting for paying very.
so somebody, 1 second, so somebody mentioned earlier about the taxes. And we can share this if you come to a meeting. We actually were part of that went to Ottawa to show what the impact of RC within our community, because we get it, guys. We know our taxes are. You don't have to tell us that. We know that. We live it with you. Better. But a house in Ottawa with the same tax structure and similar to what we have in the PAW would pay $25,000 a year in property taxes. If we had the same tax structure, they don't pay that. They pay the $4,000 or $5,000. And this is what we highlighted to them in the slide pack. We said, okay, guys, you want to know the impact? Here's what it looks like. Plug this house in Ottawa Street over here and plug it into this formula. That's what you're paying here. And you know what they went? Holy smokes. You know what everybody, all the government people tell us when we bring this up and we tell them how much you guys pay for taxes or we pay for taxes? Are you kidding me? That much?
Who are you talking to?
Ministers, we talk to ministers, we talk to everybody, and again, we talk to them, Lawrence, because we're looking for ideas. We're trying to come up with a way of getting a lower tax impact on everybody. Not sure. I'm not sure. Never been asked. I mean, yeah, it's,
Maybe some of these private citizens have to take it into their own hands, to phone these same people.
Yeah, I know it. And that's what we're,
Give us an indication
yeah.
as to who to phone and,
Well, I mean, watch our minutes, watch our meetings, come to our meetings. You hear us talking about who we're talking to all the time. We just had we had meetings with 4 ministers or 5 ministers. We talk about public safety. We understand what's going on in the community. We talk about all the issues with that. We talk about recreation and wellness. We talked about immigration. We talked about the
I'm talking about naming these people.
yeah, we can give you the names. No
Putting
problem.
their phone numbers on the website. So that we.
Right
can-
on yeah, it's on the website today. Like I said, you go to the Manitoba website, message any minister.
So,
Logan, sorry.
yeah, just a couple things, just interested, I'm not sure how much you'll be able to kind of clarify, but is it correct that we pay 70% towards the police and because we're over 5,000? We would pay 30%, is that?
I think it's something like that, but hey, so Herb, do you remember, what's that percentage? So in our contract, we pay 70% because of our numbers, and if we got under, we would pay 10 or 30 or.
75%.
So 75%, so you know how much more over the 5,000 we are?
We are at 5,600 and.
Yeah, so we're so close. It's not to say that obviously we want less people in town, it's just to realize why we're paying so much
We want
towards the policing, right? And my second part of that being, okay, so, and I know it's far down the line, you know, it seems that it's a huge undertaking for the town to deal with this cost. Obviously, that's so hard to battle with the policing. In that next 5 years, like come, 2030, when this contract is up, is there a chance for some kind of reform? Like to find out a way to do private policing where we're not having to be under their kind of rule of this,
That's a great question, Logan, and I can tell you, we're already having those discussions.
Yeah,
Because we've already said to the RCMP, our friend Scott McMurchie, that maybe we should look at Manitoba First Nations policing to police our community. Because we've got to start shopping this around. They've sort of pricing themselves out of business here.
Why not share?
There is a sharing agreement, but it's not as clear as, we don't share financially, but there is a very supporting group.
Bodies.
Yeah, well, they do, like,
Reciprocal.
they have that agreement that if they are short, Lawrence, they do send guys to the town. If they're short, they will, and they will bill back and forth. Okay, so we've got 2 minutes. And then I would like to sort of wrap things up. Unless everybody wants to get out of class early, and go home and watch a hockey game like I do. But again, we do really appreciate, this was really trying to educate people what it is. We do, I know somebody thinks we don't care, we do. People, we don't want people to be hurt. That was never the intent. Know that it's on both sides of that number. It's not just on one side of the number that people are struggling with all sorts of challenges that they have. The world's changing for us. We've challenged our staff. We understand that the mill rate sitting at 63, and we've told the staff, we've got to come back with a different number than that. That's too high. And if we're gonna have an increase, we have to show our ratepayers why the taxes are increasing and the value they're getting from it. We can't just bring it across the line. We've also challenged, we've got a whole world in a mess right now. We've also asked our staff, start looking at where costs are gonna go. What are we gonna do for tariffs? Is there impacts in our community? We don't know any of that stuff. I have no idea about it. And we need to start thinking about that because, and we don't know all of our costs are double. And at the end of the year, we're coming back and saying, we've got to increase everybody's taxes by 30% next year because of the way the world went. We're not saying it's gonna happen though, but we want to be prepared.
What are we getting for taxes back from, craft paper?
What they say,
Are they
but
paying back now or not?
I don't believe they pay back. But I know they pay taxes, and I'm gonna tell you, it's the highest taxed business or highest tax revenue for the community.
Yeah, but we turned around and gave them tax rates a while back.
Yeah, no, I agree, yeah, no, for sure, but that's,
Are they back to paying taxes?
they are paying taxes, yeah,
Full taxes or partial?
full taxes.
Andre, can you just tell people in the room, if we had 130 unit density build, how much tax will that generate on a yearly basis?
Yeah, so,
By housing 30 more people, when we have hundreds of jobs in this community, we can't. They're talking about the fact that that's valid about the 98 hundreds of jobs we can't fill here. We cannot grow this economy because we don't have housing. So one of the things we haven't talked about tonight is the fact that if we could broaden the tax base. So do you actually know what a 30?
I, off the top of my head, I don't know what a 30-unit, housing project's gonna.
Jonathan, you have some idea?
Would you figure that out?
Well, but what I can tell you, it'll be based on the assessed value of that home, and as we mentioned, what's $1 million? Well, actually, we could kind of figure it out right off.
I'm not talking about 30 homes.
No, I know, but I'm trying to just do the calculation in the top of my head. I don't have it off the top of my head. We could figure it out for somebody that's got more education that could guess at it.
If a 30-unit apartment building costs, about $8 to $10 million to build, then you could put that in your calculation and figure out they'd be paying maybe, $20,000 in taxes instead of $30,000.
So it's a drop.
Yeah, and then we didn't talk about it. You'll see it in the, I know we're gonna wrap up here right away because I said a hard stop. We didn't talk too much about it, but we are looking at things for businesses as well. So, you know, I know we're talking residential now. We're talking about tax incremented financing for businesses, which doesn't have a negative impact on the municipality directly. And what a tax incremented financing, to the best of my tax knowledge is like, I've got a $1 million building or a business. I'm gonna now upgrade, invest, expand my hotel, whatever it happens to be. And now it's valued at $10 million. So there's a difference in an assessed value, right? So when you think of that, your taxation is made up of a whole bunch of expenses, but one tax that's in there is your school tax. And school tax, what you can do, because if I made my business bigger, it doesn't really have any impact on schools directly. You can actually apply to the government, identify certain properties where this type of development, the school tax would be backed out. You can use it for redevelopment, or you can even take portions of it and put it in reserves for future developments and stuff. So that's also on the plate. You'll see it coming. It's really business oriented development, sort of big picture stuff. So people on a municipal front, for us as in the municipal world, it doesn't impact us because when you look at your tax bill, you have a policing, or you have your general taxation, then you have the school tax. That's the only thing it impacts is school tax. Now, if you're bringing in 100 people to town or 100 families, like my friend was saying, and they're all new families in town, you wouldn't do a tax increment of financing for that because you are gonna have a strain on the school. So you might have another program. So again, on your way out, again, we help anybody, you know, I know I did lots of the talking. I know I told my council to jump in whenever they can. You're not allowed to go yet. Jesus. But I do appreciate everybody. Thanks for coming out. Hope to see you guys out. If you got concerns, questions, track us down. We're doing what we think is great. Other people are here.
Gonna be good presentation.
Express does, yeah, I never said it. I'm gone. Oh, but anyway, Express as a percentage, how much do we actually pay Darcy? As a, yes.
So our total contract is around off the top of the head, so 17, school taxes are. Everybody. Not so much. No, I know, but it's not so much of us, it's not so much of us trying to do the municipal contract. Have another municipality. Has to change. Because our pay was made when there was still nine horses. And so that's the problem, so when we are talking about this, it's the same thing. Those things will be charged 5,000 people, 3.9 million charged a community of here, that's what.
There has to be a complete action where we get on the phone and we pass through these people.
Does this go on, down there? Does this go on?
Charismatic person who's.
Because that's not right, it can't happen. Like, it's gonna continue in this.
It's like, you can assess, or, sorry, challenge.